The air was thick with heat, a suffocating blanket that settled over the town. The clock had just struck midnight, yet the swelter of the day still clung to the earth like a reluctant guest refusing to leave. The streets were empty, bathed in the dim amber glow of streetlights, flickering now and then as if overwhelmed by the heat. Damina stood by her window, her eyes tracing the distant horizon where the dark sky met the silhouette of far-off trees. Her heart was restless, caught between the lethargy of the heat and the quiet hum of thoughts that refused to settle. She could hear the faint rustling of leaves outside, a sound that brought no relief, only a reminder of the stillness in the air. She stepped outside, barefoot, the warm pavement beneath her feet comforting in its familiarity. The world felt abandoned, as if the weight of the night had driven everyone into hiding. A slow breeze drifted past, barely strong enough to stir the strands of hair falling over her face. It was warm, like everything else tonight. She began walking, her feet moving without direction, pulled by some invisible thread that led her away from her house. The night had a strange, heavy energy, the kind that made you feel like something just out of reach was waiting. The cicadas hummed in the background, their rhythmic song adding to the surreal quality of the night. As Amina rounded the corner, the air seemed to shift, becoming denser. She could sense something different in the distance, a presence perhaps. Her skin prickled, not from fear, but from the strange awareness that she wasn't entirely alone. That's when she saw him, leaning against a low stone wall, his figure barely visible in the dim light. His gaze was fixed on the horizon, his posture relaxed, as if he had been waiting for her all along. "You're out late," he said, his voice low, almost blending into the sounds of the night. She shrugged, stepping closer. Couldn't sleep. Too hot, something like that. They stood in silence for a moment, the oppressive heat hanging between them like an unsaid word. There was no need for small talk. The night carried a weight of its own, a shared understanding that made words seem unnecessary. The air around them crackled with a strange electricity, as if the night itself was alive, waiting for something to happen. He turned to her, his eyes reflecting the faint light of the moon, and for a moment, the world felt still. "You ever feel like the night hides more than it shows?" he asked quietly, his gaze piercing through the darkness. Amina nodded. She knew what he meant. There was something about these long, hot nights that seemed to stretch reality, making the world feel like a dream, where everything was both too close and impossibly far away. "I think that's why I come out here," she replied, "to feel something different." He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that held secrets, and looked back toward the horizon. "Yeah, I get that." The minutes stretched into what felt like hours, the two of them standing together in the stifling heat, sharing the quiet of the night. The world around them remained unchanged, but inside, something shifted, just enough to make them both feel a little more alive, a little less alone. And when the first breath of cooler air finally stirred in the distance, it brought with it the faintest hint of something new. Maybe the night was hiding things after all, but for now, that mystery was enough to keep them both standing there side by side, waiting for the dawn.